Hello everyone, and welcome to Hidden Korea, the channel where untold stories resurface and the most shocking truths finally come to light. Today, we uncover a revelation that has shaken the entire nation. After disappearing from the spotlight for 2 long years, Wang and Bai have finally broken their silence, and the truth they revealed has left fans stunned, speechless, and desperate for answers. What were they hiding now? And how did their shocking confession remain buried for so long? Stay with us, because the truth begins right now. For 2 long years, Wang and Bai vanished from the spotlight as if swallowed by the earth itself. No interviews. No public sightings. No explanations. Absence became one of the entertainment world's greatest mysteries, spawning endless theories, speculations, and debates that never found solid ground. Some believed they were secretly filming abroad. Others insisted they had quietly retired. But the truth they finally revealed tonight, was far darker. Far more shocking than anything the public dared imagine. The revelation began with an unexpected announcement, a joint live broadcast from both stars, scheduled without warning in the dead of night. A notification hit social media. Panic erupted instantly. Fans rushed online. Outlets scrambled to prepare. And within minutes, millions gathered in front of their screens, breathless, waiting for answers that had been buried for 24 months. Then the live stream began. The screen flickered. A dimly lit room appeared. And there, sitting side by side, were Wang and Bai. But something was wrong, glaringly wrong. Their eyes were hollow. Their expressions strained. Their usual charm, their playfulness, their star-like glow were gone. The weight they carried was visible in the tension of their shoulders, the tightness in their voices, the tremor of their fingers. Dylan looked into the camera first. His voice low, unsteady. For 2 years, we couldn't speak. Not because we didn't want to, but because we weren't allowed. The words alone were enough to ignite chaos across the internet. Comments exploded. Fans begged for clarification. Lu raised a hand, signaling for silence, and the nation obeyed. We disappeared, she continued, because someone forced us to. A chill swept through viewers. Forced? By who? Why? How? She explained that 2 years earlier, during the peak of their popularity, an anonymous figure began sending them increasingly disturbing messages. At first, they brushed them off as obsessive fan mail. But soon, the messages became threats so specific and so invasive that both stars realized they were being watched, followed, monitored. Whoever it was knew everything. Their schedules, their travel routes, their filming locations, even private conversations that happened behind closed doors. We thought it was a hacker, Dylan said quietly, until we realized it was someone physically close. Someone who had access to things no stranger should ever know. Fear settled heavily in their eyes. Balu described a night she would never forget, the night their lives changed. After a long day of filming, she found an envelope slipped beneath her car seat. Inside was a photograph of her sleeping in her apartment, taken from inside her bedroom. The message written beneath it sent a tremor through her entire body. I can reach you whenever I want. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She called Dylan in a panic, only to discover he had received the exact same message weeks earlier and had been too afraid to tell her. He apologized in the live stream, voice cracking, admitting he didn't want to frighten her, didn't want her to live in the same fear he battled every night. Things spiraled quickly after that. Agencies intervened. Investigators were hired. Security was doubled. Yet the threats only escalated. And then, act that forced them into hiding. The stalker sent a final message. Disappear, or someone will get hurt. Trembling, Bailu admitted that she spent nights sleeping with the lights on, terrified to close her eyes. Equally shaken, described how he stayed awake for days at a time, checking every window, every door, every shadow. Their lives had become a prison. The public had assumed they were ignoring fans. In reality, they were running for their lives. Agencies quietly relocated them to a remote safe house, cut all communication lines, and erased all traces of their whereabouts. Couldn't post online. They couldn't call their families freely. They couldn't step outside without escorts. For 2 entire years, they lived in a careful, suffocating silence meant to protect them but slowly crushing them emotionally. Tonight, everything changed. Her next confession would stun the nation even more. Balu took a shaky breath as she continued, her fingers clutching the sleeves of her sweater. The reason we're speaking now, she said slowly, is because the person who threatened us has finally been caught. The words detonated through the live stream. The comment section exploded into frantic disbelief. Fans cried. Reporters scrambled. But Dylan wasn't finished. A random stranger, he said quietly. He wasn't a hacker. He wasn't an outsider. He paused, long enough for viewers to feel dread crawling up their spines. It was someone from inside one of our teams. Gasps echoed through living rooms across the country. Dylan explained how investigators discovered that the stalker had been working closely with them, a staff member who had access to confidential information, filming schedules, scripts, dressing rooms, even their private vehicles. Someone who had been part of their everyday lives, quietly collecting data, monitoring their movements, and manipulating those around them. He watched us, Dylan whispered. For years. Balu's voice wavered as she revealed the moment investigators finally caught him. An attempted break-in at the safe house where they had been hiding. Man had brought equipment, keys, and maps marked with handwritten notes about security patterns and blind spots. His intentions were unknown. The threat was undeniable. We found out later, she said softly, that he had planned to take one of us. Dylan's jaw clenched so tightly the audience could see the muscle twitching. He had never looked this fragile, or this furious. Agencies had begged them to stay silent about the investigation even after the arrest, fearing public panic and legal complications. Two stars refused. They had lived in fear for too long, watched their lives crumble in isolation, and endured nightmares that never seemed to end. Stayed silent because we were told silence was safer, Balu said. But silence almost destroyed us. Voice broke. Dylan placed a protective hand over hers, grounding her. The gesture raw with emotion. Added, we're speaking now because we don't want anyone else in the industry to go through this. We don't want silence to be the reason someone gets hurt. Chat section filled with messages of support, love, and heartbreak. Fans apologized for misjudging them. Others thanked them for their courage. The couple had one more revelation to share, something no one expected. During their 2 years in hiding, to live in close quarters, forced to rely on each other for survival, forced into darkness only they understood, their relationship changed. Dylan looked at Balu with a softness that cut through the tension. We didn't just survive, he said. Found something else during those 2 years. Her cheeks flushed, eyes glassy with emotion. He reached for her hand again. We fell in love. The world froze. Millions watching gasped in unison. Some screamed. Some burst into tears. Some dropped their phones. Livestream nearly crashed from the sudden surge of traffic. We nodded through her tears. We didn't expect it. We didn't plan it. You face fear together for so long, you see someone's soul. And we saw each other. Their love story, born from terror and survival, shocked the nation more deeply than anything they had revealed so far. This wasn't a romance scripted for television. It wasn't a PR stunt. It wasn't fan service. It was real. Raw. Unexpected. And powerful. Dylan squeezed her hand gently. We're safe now. And we want to begin again, not in hiding. In the open, with all of you. The livestream reached its peak viewership in history. The nation didn't just watch a confession. They witnessed two people return from the shadows, not broken, but reborn. The silence of 2 years had finally ended. Truth they revealed shook the world. As the livestream drew to a close, the tension that had held millions of viewers captive slowly unraveled into a stunned, emotional silence. 2 years of mystery, fear, answered questions had finally come to light, not through scandals or rumors, but through the trembling voices of two people who had survived what no one else could see. Dylan Wang and Balu didn't just reveal a truth, they revealed the depth of their scars, their courage, and the unexpected bond that grew in the darkest corners of their lives. The nation watched, breathless, as they held each other's hands, not as co-stars, not as public figures, but as two souls who fought their way back from fear and found love in the wreckage. What began as a confession became a healing, a release, a reclaiming of their own story. In that moment, the weight they carried for 2 years finally lifted into the night. Silence had not been avoidance. Their disappearance had not been abandonment. It had been survival. And now, standing in the light once more, chose honesty, vulnerability, and truth. Everyone who stayed through the revelations, the heartbreak, and the rebirth of hope, thank you. Thank you for listening with understanding instead of judgment. Thank you for welcoming them back after 2 years of shadows. Thank you for giving them the space to speak, to heal. Breathe again. This chapter ends with truth. But their story begins anew, stronger, brighter, and finally free. Thank you for being with us until the very last moment. We'll see you again in the next story.